Ministry, and he is joining us now for the first Finance Ministry reaction to the very important circular that came from the Reserve Bank yesterday, sending 12 companies to the bankruptcy court and putting 25% of the NPA in kind of a war footing resolution. Sanjiv, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. Well, first up, we wanted to understand the equity holders' position. The world of business is still trying to come to grips with whether equity goes to zero or whether after these 12 cases go through the NCLT process, it is quite possible that haircuts are given and the same promoter can come back. So equity is not quite zero.
So let me right up front clarify that because the bankruptcy process has been set in motion does not mean that we are just going to take all of this tomorrow morning and sell it off and auction it off. The process has been put in place. Some of it will get resolved. But the point here is it's now, the process is time-bound. As you know, there's 180 days that is normally given. At most, extendable maybe by another 90 days in special cases. So worst case, if things have not been resolved in some way, then, things just get liquidated at the end of the process. But what happens now is essentially the lenders and the borrower have an incentive, because it's time-bound, to come to, in whatever things that they can resolve it amongst themselves.
So,
if it can be resolved, that's great. I mean, liquidation is not necessarily something that, everybody is trying to push for.
Okay. Sanjiv, morning. We were just speaking with a couple of bankers a while back, and UCO Bank made a point where they said that it would be good if the RBI gives a forbearance or amortization to some of these banks to spread the provisioning over a period of time. Is that something that the RBI would be looking at?
I'm sure the RBI will consider it, but I'm not in a position to comment on this. You may want to clarify this with the RBI itself.
Sanjiv, the other issue that people are grappling with is it clear that it will be a 6-month process in the NCLT? Can it happen that somebody will take it on appeal to the Supreme Court and the entire law itself is, the legal process itself is elongated? Do you worry about this issue, this kind of a development?
Well, it's not something we hope will happen. We hope this will not happen. It's a possibility, but we are hoping that this is something that for the most of the cases will not happen, and the process will go through, and you've got 12 cases that have been identified. The names will be shortly announced, and they account for as much as 25% of the bad assets. So the point here is that the process has begun, and it's possible that some bits and pieces here and there will get stuck. But I am quite confident that the bulk of it will follow through in a time-bound process, and you will have an outcome.
Okay. No, the reason why I'm asking you is that when one of the guys, Innovative and people like that, went to the High Court did not stay the process and actually sent it to the Appellate Tribunal, the NCLAT, which promptly sent the guys back packing to the NCLT. So neither the High Court nor the NCLAT stymied the process. Therefore, do you think that broadly there is a buy-in from the judiciary? I mean, even recently the Supreme Court spoke about
that's good news.
Sorry.
That surely is good news.
Okay. No, recently the Supreme Court also said that we have to look at, the economic impact, employment and stuff like that. So do you think there is a buy-in from the higher judiciary?
Well, I can't speak for the judiciary, but I mean, as you pointed out, that that they are conscious of the process and the economic implications of all of this. So, the law is clear. The institutions have been created, the NCLT and other institutions, although they are new and untested so far. Nevertheless, we are confident that some of these will now begin to move forward quite quickly. And these are cases that have been festering for years and years. It's a problem we have had for a very long time, and now I think one way or the other it'll get resolved.
So PSU banks will also have to be recapitalized further, right? As haircuts needed now are likely to exceed the current provisioning norms. Are we looking at more capitalization for banks?
We will see. I mean, one of the problems was because these things were festering and were never getting resolved, the hole in the balance sheet was a matter of opinion. Now that we are going to actually resolve, we'll know what that number is. It may be a large number, but at least we'll know what that number is. Now, some part of it is provisioned, as you mentioned. Some part of it, of course, there'll be recovery. It's not like these assets have zero value. So there'll be some recovery. In the end of that, there will be still a gap. Now, some part of it may need recapitalization. Where that is necessary, the government will look into it, certainly. There are many options, ways of doing it, and you know, the government will exercise those depending on what is needed. But you see, what is necessary at this juncture is to know what this gap itself is.
Okay. The bankers we spoke to said that in many cases probably 25% is provided because these are 2 years old, so 15% in the first year and 25% by the second year. Some of them have been prudent and maybe 40%, but still the haircuts could be 60%. The short point I'm saying is that capital requirement is going to be large. I think one of the rating agencies, Moody's, came up with a big number of 95,000
No. So
crores.
I think that is not the correct way of thinking of it. That is not the correct way of thinking. That which has been provisioned is not the only thing you get back. The asset does not have zero value. It has some value.
Zero. Not zero. They are looking at 60%
that value also
haircut.
has to be added back. So you have to take the provisioning. You have to take. It depends on the asset. No, the point I'm making. Why would you need a 60% haircut? Because some part, as you mentioned, is provisioned. Let's say 25%. Now, then it depends on what the value of that asset is. If it's 50%, then you get 25 plus 50. You don't. That doesn't mean. So you have to take the provisioning plus the whatever the value, the remaining value is. Yes, at the end of it, it could be large. It depends from asset to asset. Whatever it is, the point of the matter is, I'm not trying to preclude, the market judging what it is. It may be a large one, it may be a small. Whatever it is, so far, the number that was being estimated was a matter of opinion. Now, because you're actually going to try and resolve it, perhaps sell some of it off, or at least whatever you will do, you will have a hard number to deal with, and then we will be in a position to judge what to do next. So far, because we were not getting this hard number, it was difficult to deal with.
Yeah. No, I take your point. You also said that we have a couple of options to handle it. What would be those options? Are you all thinking in terms of a recapitalization bond, or are you all thinking in terms of mergers? What are the options on the table?
Well, the consolidation story is a somewhat separate story. I mean, there's links, but I don't think you should confuse the consolidation story. That's a commercial decision being taken to, simplify management and so on and so forth. I don't think by consolidating banks, you actually reduce the amount of NPAs. And in any case, I don't think we are attempting to do capital arbitrage by merging good banks with bad banks. That is also not the intention. So there will be some consolidation, but that's being done on commercial basis, and thoughts have been given to that and are on a fairly advanced basis. So as far as recapitalization of the banks is concerned, yes, you could have recap bonds, perhaps even consider paring down some of the government's holdings. Some of it could come from the budget. It depends on how large the number is. Some combination of factors will be used, of tools will be used. Everything is open.
Okay, just to clarify.
Actually, you give us two very big points, Sanjiv. You're saying that it is not the government's thinking to merge weak banks with strong banks. That is clearly not something that the market should fear.
Not as a way of not as a way of recapping the banking sector. No, that would not be a very good thing. Merging a bad bank with a good bank as a way of getting a large good bank is no more valid a way of thinking than you may get a large bad bank.
And you
So it
also
will be done on completely different basis. I mean, occasionally you will find a weak bank merging with a good bank, but that will not be because we are trying to somehow improve the average.
Okay.
That's because there are some other considerations which make commercial sense.
And you are also telling us that recapitalization bond is a possibility.
All tools are up for grabs. We will consider all of them depending on the size of the gap that we have to fill. I'm not, but only when we know what the size of the problem is, will we know what the combination of tools that will be used. And lot of things it will depend on. For example, what's happened, what are the share prices of the stocks could be something that we may consider. What are the the tightness of the system in terms of monetary policy, all kinds of things. There may be strategic interests from some private or foreign bank. I don't know, anything. I mean, why should we preclude any thought?
Okay.
Okay. So are we looking at, government entities like NTPC looking to perhaps buy into weaker power assets? Are we looking at any kind of stressed asset funds? Any other tools that the government has?
Yes, there may be asset reconstruction companies that may be interested in picking some of this stuff up. There is the newly set up infrastructure fund that may be interested in picking up some of this as a way of, they already have some degree of finance, and this may be an easy way to pick up assets and build up a portfolio quickly at a cheap price. There may be public sector may indeed pick up something. Again, on a commercial basis, it's not like this is the one strategy. No. If a certain government entity thinks that something makes sense for whatever reason, they're welcome to do it. But in every single case, the primary consideration will be a commercial one.
Okay, so
practicality and commercial decisions is basically what we care about.
Okay, so you're saying that the NIIF could also be a buyer of or investor in some of the stressed funds. And what about the one that Viralacharya put on the table? Some kind of
it's all up for grabs.
Okay. No, Viralacharya was speaking about a kind of a government-sponsored asset reconstruction company. Is something else in the works other than the NIIF?
Possible.
Okay. Possible as in the first shoots have begun, the first work has begun? I mean,
NIIF may sponsor one. I mean, the point I'm making is that, sorry?
No, it's something in the works in terms of a,
sorry, I didn't get that.
Government-owned asset reconstruction company or government-sponsored?
It's a possibility. Some discussions have happened around those lines. As I said, as we go through this process, we will know what needs to be done. But we need to get the process rolling fast.
Okay. Is there any speeding up of these special situation funds from abroad? I mean, the Wilbur-Ross variety or the KKR variety or Brookfields. If you can update us on whether they are at a
yes, I mean, they are open. They are open. Well, I can't comment on specific names, but the fact is, if there are foreign asset reconstruction companies who want to show interest in it, they're very welcome to throw their hat in the ring.
Sanjiv, you've given us a statement that the market will really react positively to the fact that the government is not looking to merge good banks with bad banks. But can you tell us what the government's thinking is at the moment with respect to mergers or consolidations? What kind of timeline are we looking at, if any?
Well, I'm not in a position to give you a timeline, but all I will say is that this discussion has gone fairly deep now. So, so I would say that, yes, the way we do not want to proceed with the rule of thumb that, a good bank and a bad bank get merged and that somehow solves the problem. That is totally not the way this will be done. There may be a case where such a thing happens because of completely different reasons, because it makes sense for some other reasons. Branch consolidation or something like that. But as a general strategy, this will not be done.
Okay. Well, Sanjiv, you know, the one piece of the PJ Nayak committee recommendation which was not implemented or discussed very seriously, primarily because NPAs overtook the problem, is thinking of a holding company of all the government banks, something like a sovereign wealth fund company, and trying to sell that stake into the private sector. Basically, in short, bringing down government stake in government banks below 51%. Is that also a logical next step?
No, that can be done without, see, even if such a step was taken, you don't have to create this super holding company to do it.
Okay.
Maybe that will be done in the future, but right now the focus is on getting this NPA thing going.
Okay.
You know, let us not get distracted from that first and primary focus.
So on this NPA issue itself, this RBI circular, you spoke briefly about the possibility of some delays. Are we looking at larger delays, Sanjiv? Because, you know, the bankruptcy law is still in its infancy. It's an untested legal process at the moment. Do you think that, you know, interpretation issues could delay the process?
Well, I didn't bring up the delay possibility, you did. I just said that it's a possibility, of course, but we hope it will not really happen. I think it's the law is quite clear. We have new institutions, of course, who have not yet been tested, but we are confident that on the whole, this process will now go through quite quickly. As you can see, you know, there is obviously a lot of focus being and attention being given to the issue. You had a major ordinance come out just a few weeks ago. Now you have this list. I'm sure you know from your discussions with others in the government that this is being done quite quickly. And remember, this is a matter that has festered for years.
Yeah.
And now we are talking in days and weeks. So this is already a huge progress.
Oh, yes, certainly. One can see light at the end of the tunnel. No two ways about it. No kicking the can down. But, you know, now that the 2016 NPAs are what the RBI is asking the banks to deal with, would you say that, say, in a quarter or two, the 2017 NPAs will be taken up?
Look, we are an entrepreneurial economy in which continuously there will be NPAs. This is a process of creating destruction that is part of what we have signed up for when we signed up for a market-driven entrepreneurial economy. So, of course, every year a new bunch will come up. And the point is that on an ongoing basis, we need to keep clearing it up. In fact, the whole point is that we need to get rid of this social stigma against bankruptcy and exit.
Of course.
And just do it as a matter of routine. So, yes, there will be 17, there will be in 18, there will be in 19, and 20 there will be new cases. The problem here was, for a number of reasons, we accumulated a huge bunch of them and it's jammed up the system. So this jammed up system is being cleared up so that the machine now begins to flow, the system begins to flow in a more normal and orderly way. Okay.
Is there anything you can update us on IDBI? That falls in a separate category because it's not under the Banking Regulation Act or the Banks Takeover Act. The government doesn't necessarily have to have 51%. Will we see any
So I'm afraid I'm not in a position to comment.
Okay.
No, I'm not in a position to comment on any specific case.
Okay. Okay. Just one more word on the delay.
That's the RBI's prerogative, and
Fair point.
you may also want to discuss.
Fair point. Just a word on the delay. I'll tell you from where Sonia is coming when she's asking you the delay question. Cases like, say, Bhushan or SR, there was a plan ready. You know, even as of January, February, we had reported that almost everything in terms of what is the sustainable, unsustainable portion, what is the portion that has to be converted into cumulative preference shares, everything was ready. But then the IDBI arrests happened and then things got postponed. And then this expectation of the overseeing committee or committees. So, you know, the fear now is that will the Bhushans of the world take another 1 year to get resolved?
Well, hopefully not. I mean, that is the whole point about doing whatever we are doing. That's why the ordinance came up. That's why this list has very quickly been drawn up. So you're going to see basically in these cases You're going to have, you know, these things being sped up, and that's why you have this particular oversight committee-based system, because the idea here is the oversight committee makes sure, one, that enough of the lenders come into the room and agree to a plan. Two, that whatever plan they come up with between the lenders and the debtor, I mean, the RBI is not telling them what to decide. It's up between them to decide. But once they've decided whatever it is, the oversight committee ensures compliance, which is a very major problem. That everybody, once they've signed down to it, keep their word. And finally, the point about the oversight committee is that the oversight committee will, whatever agreement it is, it will put a stamp of approval on it to basically certify that processes were followed and that it was all kosher.
Okay.
So then what happens as a result of that is that if in future there is an investigation, the participants in the negotiations can pull out this piece of paper and say, hey, look at this, the oversight committee of the Reserve Bank has essentially approved it, therefore this was all clean and transparent. So that is why that particular process using an oversight committee was put in place in the first place. So that has been taken into account.
Okay. Sanjiv, it was a pleasure listening to everything that you had to tell us. Already 2 good books in your kitty. Will we see a 3rd book on NPAs from you?
Well, no, I usually write history or other kinds of subjects. I write for pleasure. Possibly the next one will be a fiction book and possibly satire.
Okay.
And hopefully will not turn out to be an NPA.
Will there be a fictional banker in it?
But it'll take a long time.
Okay. All right.
Well, see, it may take somewhat longer than I had expected. I did about 80% of it before I took up this role, but now it's stuck.
Oh, so is it about economics
Maybe
at all?
we need a resolution process.
Give us an idea of the, give us a curtain raiser.
No.
All right, we'll leave it at that.
Well, it'll be satire. It'll be satire on modern India.
Okay, satire on modern India. We will look forward. Your history books were definitely very, very interesting. Sanjiv Sanyal, pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much for joining us.